Edinburgh in festival time is just not like anywhere else. Do you know, the confluence of all the festivals together, everybody here to celebrate and just revel in it for a month is an absolute gift to put on a great big event in the middle of all of that. But as you say, there's a fair amount of complexity.
I'm Kevin Rivers, and my friend Carlos Miranda and I are two American expats who spend their days either eating or waiting to eat in our adopted home of Edinburgh.
Sorry to interrupt, Kevin. Crew, it's Carlos, and you're actually listening to a side quest, episodes of the podcast that deliberately stray from our usual restaurant-focused interviews. While our main episodes cover our adventures in eating, these shows cover the adventures that take place while we're waiting to eat. This is an eating and waiting to eat side quest.
Listeners, welcome to our second Waiting to Eat side quest. This side quest is our first foray into Edinburgh's world-famous festival scene. The month of August in Edinburgh is a really special time for the city. There are 8 festivals going on simultaneously over the course of the entire month, so you can bet the energy in the city is absolutely electric. Carlos, what's your favorite part of festival season in Edinburgh?
Making reservations. You know I like to make a plan, and the city's so busy. And in fact, many of the restaurants that are on the show talk about how they're packed for every single meal. So as soon as reservations opens for the month of August, I get very smug and I get a kick out of just making reservations to go to all of my favorite places in between hitting up all the various festivals.
I love that there's 8 different festivals going on in the city. There's events all day, every day. And your favorite thing about it is the fact that it's even more reason for you to make a reservation. Carlos likes a thing.
Carlos likes a thing. So Kev, who are we taking along on this side quest?
So for this side quest, we are speaking with Jenny Niven, the CEO of the Edinburgh International Book Festival. You and I both really love the book festival and all the content that they have going on. I know you have a close connection to it.
Yeah, this episode for me is very special because as many listeners know, my wife is a writer and author, and she's very connected with the book festival. So the book festival, the 2 to 3 weeks of the book festival every year are must-see TV at the Miranda household, and we are here the entire month, and we do like 20 to 30 book festival-related events every single year.
Yeah, they do such a good job. They always have such great content. So we wanted to sit down with Jenny to really understand what goes into putting on the book festival, and also to hear about the things that they've got going on with food, content, and events, as it's been an area of the festival that's just been growing and growing for them.
Yeah, I think last year, all of my favorite things that I did at the book festival were food related, which is really what gave us the idea to talk and bring Jenny on.
Should we get on with the show?
Let's do it.
Jenny, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
It's really, really a pleasure. Carlos and I are big fans of the book festival, so we'll jump right in. So you are the CEO of the International Edinburgh Book Festival. What is a typical day like for you as CEO?
Sure. Well, it's such a cliche, but there is no typical day. But for your listeners that are a bit further afield who've maybe not had the chance to come and join us, we are one of the world's oldest and largest book festivals. We run around 650, 700 events every year with writers from all continents, and we feature everything from the kind of Booker Prize winning or the most iconic novels or non-fiction works of any given year, right through to brand new writers and work in translation or loads of work for children and young people. It's a really core part of what we do as well. And also, as I'm sure we'll get into, lots of experiential events and things as well. But the festival has been going in Edinburgh for 44 years this year. So there's a real sense of it being part of the cultural fabric of the city. We're quite a big operation. People sort of say, oh, what do you do the rest of the year? Which is, you try and not make your eye squeak at that. We have about 30 staff year round. And a lot of the work, especially at this time of year, we're looking ahead to what we're going to be putting on stages. But a lot of it is the other stuff that goes on all year round. So we have a very well-developed community programme. We do a lot of work in libraries. We work with prisons and schools and things year round as well. So there's a whole lot of other background stuff that fulfills our mission as a charity, as well as the events that you might come to in the summer. So a typical day might involve anything that is related to any of those things. But just as an example, right now we're absolutely in the thick of research. We're spending a lot of time with publishers, both here in Scotland and also in London and the northeast of England, where lots of them are based, being pitched things. So that takes up a lot of time, which is so fascinating, and just hearing what's out there and what's being published and what people in the publishing industry are really excited about.
So when you get people coming into the festival and the events that you guys put on around the festival, does that mostly come through publishers? How much research and going out and finding people do you guys do?
It's a bit of a mix. We're meeting with about 80 publishers, and each one of them will be pitching tens of titles. So you come out with a couple of thousand books that they have selected that they think are right for our festival. So that in itself is loads. Even without that, there will always be stuff that our team have had our eye on or are calling in that we've not been pitched that we're really interested in. We always miss things. And then that's always part of the story. Why was I not in it? Or we've been censored or whatever. Actually, you just miss things because there is so much is published in any given year. And then I like to work to a theme to give your festival programme a kind of overarching story to tell. And so we might seek out things maybe that are not published in this calendar year, but are really specific to one particular idea that we're trying to explore, or it's people from other art forms or from more kind of ideas or politics that might not necessarily even have a publication, but are critical to the overall topics that we're trying to interrogate or story that we're trying to tell. And then the absolute favourite bit of mine is the commissioning things. So it's working with writers or storytellers or artists or musicians where you think there's something really interesting and you maybe are able to just create space for them to make something new specifically for the festival. And that's the stardust on the top for me.
What are some of the examples of those commissioned works that you've done before?
Well, the big one from this year was we worked with the musician Hamish and his band. And I talked to Hamish, who had worked with on other projects before, but was just asking him if there was a writer from the past or a musician from the past that you're inspired by or that you really have some kind of connection with that you would like to spend a bit more time exploring. Who might that be? And he talked about Ivor Cutler, who I don't know if you guys would know, but he was an iconic Glasgow artist from the kind of 50s, 60s, 70s. He has the distinction of being the only artist that appeared on every one of Radio 1 through Radio 6. That's the span of the audiences that he reached. He was such an unusual character. He ended up being in the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour film. He's a really strange, quite surreal, and people talk about spoken word as if it's a now phenomenon, but you can trace the origins of that back in all sorts of different ways. And what he was doing in the 50s and 60s was basically what spoken word looks like now. But he was also extremely theatrical. And that's one of the things I've always liked about Hamish. He's a real storyteller. His songs are genuine stories, but there's a kind of performative, slightly theatrical. And that was the bit that he said was the sort of itch that he'd not really been able to scratch. So we commissioned him to do new recordings of the original Ivor Cutler songs from this album that he recorded called Life in a Scotch Sitting Room, which were these recreations of what his childhood sitting room was like, but with very surreal twists and a very West Coast of Scotland sort of bleak comic satirical humour about them, that when I first heard it I was like, oh my God, that's my childhood. So in the Spiegel tent we had a designer work with us to recreate a proper Scotch sitting room from Hamish's childhood, which would be the 80s. Because Scotland is very small and the cultural connections are very near the surface, we were able to find Ivor Cutler's original harmonium, which his band played in the piece, and Hamish recorded a bunch of new work and Ivor's original pieces in this incredible, like so unusual, just brilliant performance. And off the back of that, we've actually recorded the Book Festival's first ever album.
That's amazing.
It was so fun to work on. And it's a real privilege to have the tools and the means and the stage to be able to say to a writer or an artist that you like, what do you want to do? Yeah. And then make it happen. So.
But I have to imagine also that has to be a little bit of a challenge as well, right? We talked about how many publishers you're meeting with and how many titles and how many authors and how many things each publisher of many, many publishers are pitching you or you're having conversations with, and the things that you miss out is maybe they don't align with the theme, or maybe it's because you've been pitched 3,000 things and you can only have 500 of them, right? What other kind of challenges do you face on a day-to-day basis in your role?
One of our big strategies at the moment is about audience development. I think it's so important that as wide a range and demographic of people feel like books are accessible to them. That is such a key part of what we need to do. Partly because literacy rates are declining really sharply, but also the number of people who are just reading for pleasure is declining. And you look at, in kind of balance with that, you've also got, I would call it a crisis around mis and disinformation and people's ability to think critically, to parse information, to know where to trust where good information is coming from. So I think we as a festival have an opportunity, but kind of a responsibility to play in that field when we do have access to people who do research, who write brilliant books, who can create compelling narratives about complex topics. That's really important. But also all the subsidiary benefit of reading, whether it's developing empathy for other people, to understand other cultures, to be able to walk in someone else's shoes. And for kids, all the kind of functional benefits of literacy, but all of that other imaginative potential that is opened up. That's a really important space for us to be. The other side of it as well is that we have this incredible canvas. Edinburgh in festival time is just not like anywhere else. Do you know, the confluence of all the festivals together, everybody here to celebrate and just revel in it for a month is an absolute gift to put on a great big event in the middle of all of that. But as you say, there's a fair amount of complexity. So just on the content side, there is a lot going on, but also we're a charity. We've got 30 staff all year round. We bring on another 140 to deliver the actual thing. So there's plenty of production and technical and that side of things. But then there's all the fundraising and the marketing and all the other bits and pieces to run an event of that scale. So some of it is quite technical stuff as well. And a lot of the challenges are just making sure that all of that stuff is happening to a deadline, because the show goes on, whether you're ready or not. But that's the joy of it, that it's all these different things all wrapped into one. And
looking ahead to 2026, you've talked about some of these challenges and the themes. What's the direction of travel for 2026?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. You go down to these publisher meetings and you begin to spot themes of things that are on the radar in a very prominent way one year and then seem to be completely gone the next. And our challenge in a way is, do we get sucked into that, or do we stay our own claim on what story we think should be told? But one of the things we definitely intend to do is to continue to We've started in the last couple of years kind of in a bit more dialogue with some of the other festivals. And we're also working in partnership with Underbelly, one of the big fringe companies who run events at the McEwen Hall, which is 1,000 seats. And that's been great. And we've been able to put on some of our more kind of commercially facing stuff in that venue and attract that bigger and kind of new audience. And we'll be doing a bit more of that this year. We were really proud last year in 2025. We had 18,000 new bookers to the festival that had never come before. So that thing of expanding out who feels that the festival is for them and making sure we're programming for them, that's a challenge that we'll continue to try and meet. So the other bit of that is also young audiences. The publishing in young adult now is so interesting and so diverse, and that's a big area of growth for readership as well.
And what about experiences?
We're finding that our audiences are really inspired by coming and doing things. We do a lot of stuff that tries to break down this hierarchy of the expert is on the stage and you sit quietly in the audience and wait until it's your turn to put your hand up. I mean, there's lots of topics that is a great format for, but there's lots of stuff that is much more kind of rewarding and meaningful and interesting to get your sleeves rolled up and get stuck in and do things. And the festival has done really good, solid writing and reading workshops, and some of them have been genuinely transformational for people who are starting out to write or who are at a particular stage and then have a masterclass with someone who's at the top of their game, and that can be really powerful, and we will continue to do those. But we've been experimenting in the last couple of years with a bit more unusual stuff as well. Our theme in 2025 was repair, so we did a whole lot of programming around fixing things and about reparative justice and all this sort of stuff. But one of the workshops was on kintsugi, which is the Japanese practice where if something is ceramics are broken, according to how you put them back together and the type of materials you use, using like gold leaf and stuff, you can actually create something that is of more value than before the thing was broken, which was a lovely metaphor for lots of the stuff we were doing. But people came to that in such an open spirit of wanting to learn something new and learn a bit about the philosophy behind it, a bit about the technique. Also, with quite a few of these workshops, you see people coming intergenerationally. They'll bring their teenage kids or they'll bring their mom, or there's something really kind of community oriented around all of that as well. And yeah, I think, Carlos, you were at our fermentation workshop this summer.
I was at your, it was awesome. A chef called Kenji Morimoto. He's an American of Japanese descent, and he wrote a book about fermentation. And it was at the food writer Jess Elliott's workshop or study or, open kitchen. Yeah. And it was amazing.
Yeah, you got some real diehard fermenters, didn't you? And then people who were just like, oh, what is this?
I'd never fermented anything. And now there's something fermenting in a closet in my house from that workshop. I can't open it till August. So in August, let's see what happens.
I love that. So sticking with the theme of food and the content of the festival, when I think of a literary festival or a book festival, I don't think so much of cookbooks and food content. So it's something that has seemed to continue to grow at the festival. Why has there been such a rise in food-related content?
Oftentimes, a lot of our program is driven by the interests of our team. We have such an office full of foodies, and most of our food strand is planned by and programmed by Lily Kendrick, who's our program manager. She's terrific, and a lot of the other folks in the team feed into choices there as well. But partly it's also driven by this incredible explosion in food publishing. And if you go into any bookstore now, you'll see an enormous section on food publishing and the quality of those books that's produced. I mean, they're works of art. They're absolutely beautiful. The photography is insane. The design is lovely. And also that kind of personal narrative plus food is really popular. So there's something, I think, about storytelling and food that is really powerful. And that's been driven as much by what is published. And then that feeling of being involved and engaged and an active participant in something. For us, the partnership with Jess Elliott at Elliott's Food Studio is really pivotal to what we've been able to do as well, because Jess does just such high quality work. She produces beautiful books. She's got her community around her food studio already. We don't have that expertise within our own team. So the partnership of how to do that is a really key part of it.
Yeah, and that idea of storytelling through food and community through food, I think that so many of life's experiences and life's stories come around a table, right? And or in a kitchen.
There's a lot of examples of how food has brought writers together and storytellers together. The link between storytelling and community and food is a really strong one. And I think just that communing around food. I mean, one of the things that we do at the festival, even though we have more than 600 authors come every year, in our green room, we have hot and cold, high quality food from Valvona and Corona available all day long, because that creates that communing thing as well. That's actually a key part of the kind of hospitality that we offer as well, because although you see all the stuff on the stage, a lot of what I'm proud of what happens backstage at festivals is the time this writer met that writer and they began the conversation that later became this other, and being able to provide the kind of conditions for that to happen as well.
Is there a chef or a cookbook author that's like on your dream list, or someone that you'd love to have back?
I was thinking about this. I was thinking about it for David Chang. Mm-hmm. I absolutely loved that Ugly Delicious series. And it was one of the first times that the penny really dropped for me about that. There's something about the curiosity with which he approaches food and that sense of adventure. And for me, I lived in China for many years, and part of beginning to understand, even in a very shallow way, a culture completely different from your own comes so much through exploring the food and how people come together around food. And I really loved the way that he did that in that Ugly Delicious series. And I really I think, and he has got the gift of the gab, hasn't he? As a storyteller, he would be such a good gift.
Using that in terms of the idea of bringing people together, and obviously we talked about this, I think we need to commune together more, and what better way of doing that than through food? So on that theme, let's say you have a friend coming to town. Where are you taking them for dinner?
So, there's so many good, your first season of your podcast, it goes through some of my absolute favorite restaurants. Yeah. However, I'm going to go in a different direction. Okay. Up in Newington, there is a surprising number of very unassuming, amazing Chinese food places that you would just walk straight past unless you know what you're looking for. And there is one in particular on, I think it's South Clark Street, called Noodles and Dumplings. And there's another one just at Toll Cross. dumplings of China.
Yeah.
They are so good. And
I'm getting excited because I love dumplings of China. I introduced Kevin to dumplings of China.
There you go.
Here's a fun fact about my wife. When dumplings of China started delivering, they only delivered on a Chinese app. Now they're on Uber Eats and things like that. We love dumplings of China so much that my wife Google translated the app. And for like a while, they told us that we were the only non-Chinese speakers ordering from that restaurant.
I'm laughing because I feel very seen. During COVID, I bought my own like kind of takeaway driver delivery box carrier so that I could go to Dumplings of China because I lived so far away that I needed it to stay hot all the way home, and I would go with
That's amazing.
Bag.
That's amazing.
It's so good.
It's so good.
It's called Dumplings of China, but they have an amazing Chinese food menu off the back of their incredible dumplings, and their fish fillets and hot oil is, if you like that Szechuan heat, it's really great.
Noodles and dumplings does deserve a mention as well, though. Their soup, they do a beef shank one and they do a tofu one, and they do hand pull noodles, so you can watch the chefs in the back making the noodles. And sometimes if they catch your eye and they see that you're watching, they do it in such a flamboyant way. You know, they're flipping the noodles up to the ceiling and stuff, which is just all part of the drama.
All right, so if you had to choose between rice, bread, or pasta, you can only have one for the rest of your life. What are you picking?
It's not a decision to be taken lightly.
No, it's really not.
Could you do? I mean, oh God, I'm gonna go noodles.
You're gonna go
noodles
pasta.
with noodles and pasta in a
fine.
basket.
All right.
Oh, but the bread though. I mean, how are you going to survive without bread?
I mean,
it's hard.
What are you?
Rice.
Rice.
Every day.
Okay. Oh, I'm going to be thinking about that question for the rest of. I'm going to take that home to my tribe and see what they come up with.
Exactly.
I'll report back.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
A big thank you to Jenny for coming on the show. She's wonderful. But also, again, one of the reasons we wanted to have her on the show is that I think most of us don't really realize how much food-related content happens at the Edinburgh Book Festival. As Jenny pointed out, food talks, food experiences, cookbook talks, and I really want to encourage every single one of our listeners, when the book festival schedule comes out, have a look because there's such wonderful things. And also, remember to make reservations.
Absolutely. Make sure you're making your reservations for the festival. But also in advance of the festival, make sure you are tuning in and have subscribed to the podcast and following us on Instagram because we have some exciting stuff cooking.
Ooh, nice teaser, Kev. So, until next time.